In a Michigan courtroom filled with tension and emotion, a judge delivered a sentence that would reverberate far beyond the walls of the courthouse. The Oxford High School shooter, still just a teenager, was sentenced to 45 to 65 years in prison, a decision that stunned many observers and marked a turning point in how such cases are handled. This was one of the harshest penalties ever handed down to a juvenile for a school shooting in the United States, reflecting the gravity of the crime and the community's demand for justice. The sentence underscored the seriousness with which the court viewed the attack and the need to send a strong message about accountability. The judge's words were clear and unwavering: the calculated planning, the chilling lack of remorse, and the devastating impact on the victims and their families demanded a response that would ensure the perpetrator remained behind bars for most of his life. The court emphasized that society must be protected from such acts of violence. During the trial, the prosecution argued that the attack was not only cold and premeditated, but also driven by a disturbing desire for notoriety. They presented evidence showing the shooter's intent to cause maximum harm, placing him far beyond the reach of typical juvenile justice, and making a case for an adult-level sentence. The defense, meanwhile, pleaded for leniency, highlighting the defendant's young age and the possibility of rehabilitation. They argued that his life should not be defined solely by this one horrific act. However, the evidence, his own journals and chilling video recordings, painted a picture of intent and awareness that was impossible to ignore. Ultimately, the court sided with the prosecution, prioritizing public safety and the need for accountability over the hope for rehabilitation. The verdict reflected a broader societal reckoning with the consequences of school violence and the responsibilities of the justice system. For the families of the victims, the sentence brought a measure of justice and closure, though it could never truly erase the pain of their loss. Their emotional reactions in the courtroom spoke volumes about the lasting impact of the tragedy. This landmark decision has set a powerful precedent for how the justice system may approach similar tragedies in the future, signaling a shift toward greater accountability and a renewed commitment to protecting communities from senseless violence. November 30th, 2021, began like any other day at Oxford High School. Students filtered in, chatting with friends, teachers prepared their lessons, and the crisp Michigan air hinted at the coming winter. The school, nestled in a quiet community, was alive with the usual energy and anticipation of a new day. But that sense of normalcy was shattered in an instant when a 15-year-old student emerged from a bathroom carrying a handgun and opened fire in the hallway. Chaos erupted as students and teachers scrambled to barricade doors, hide under desks, or flee through the halls. The sounds of gunshots echoed, and fear spread rapidly as everyone tried to make sense of the nightmare unfolding around them. The shooter moved with chilling calmness, methodically targeting students at random. Witnesses later described his demeanor as eerily composed, making the terror even more surreal for those trapped inside. Within just 5 minutes, police and first responders arrived on the scene. They moved quickly, entering the building and taking the shooter into custody without resistance. But by then, the devastation had already been done. Lives were lost, and many more were changed forever. Frightened students were evacuated from classrooms, hands raised above their heads, as law enforcement swept the building. Outside, anxious parents gathered, desperately searching for any sign of their children, their faces etched with worry and fear as they waited for news. For some families, relief came in the form of tearful reunions, as students ran into the arms of loved ones. For others, the nightmare was just beginning, as they waited for updates that would forever alter their lives. The shooting left not just physical injuries, but an irreparable hole in the heart of the Oxford community. Grief and shock rippled through the town, as neighbors gathered for vigils and memorials, struggling to comprehend the tragedy. Oxford joined a tragic list of towns across America forever changed by school violence. Headlines and news reports echoed the pain felt by so many, as the community grappled with questions that had no easy answers. The events of that day would haunt Oxford for years to come, leaving scars that may never fully heal, and a community determined to remember those lost and support one another through the darkness. 4 students, Madison Baldwin, Tate Meyer, Hannah St. Juliana, and Justin Schilling, were killed, their futures stolen in an instant. Each was beloved: Madison, a creative artist; Tate, a football player and hero; Hannah, a vibrant athlete; Justin, a compassionate friend. Their loss sent shockwaves through Oxford, turning grief into a unifying force. Vigils and memorials filled the town as thousands gathered to honor the victims. 7 others were wounded and the entire student body became survivors, carrying deep psychological scars. The phrase "Oxford Strong" became a rallying cry for resilience and healing. Support poured in, but the path to recovery was long and uncertain. The tragedy left a permanent mark on the town's identity. The trial revealed chilling evidence of premeditation. At the heart of it, a journal meticulously detailing the attack. The pages were filled with disturbing thoughts, step-by-step plans, and a timeline that left little doubt about the shooter's intent. Prosecutors presented these writings as a window into a mind consumed by dark fantasies and a desire for notoriety. Alongside the journal, investigators uncovered videos recorded the night before the tragedy. In these unsettling clips, the teenager spoke directly to the camera, describing his intentions and the infamy he hoped to achieve. The footage captured a chilling calmness, as if he were rehearsing for a role he had long imagined. The shooter's fascination with infamy was evident. He outlined his plans in painstaking detail, mapping out every step and contingency. The journal revealed not just a desire to cause harm, but a calculated effort to be remembered. He expressed admiration for other mass murderers, researching their actions and even listing their names in his notes. This disturbing obsession became a blueprint for his own actions, as he sought to emulate their notoriety and surpass their infamy. In court, the shooter described the suffering he intended to cause, his words cold and detached. His demeanor remained flat and emotionless, even as the gravity of his actions was laid bare for all to see. His words of remorse rang hollow to the families in the courtroom who listened in disbelief and anguish. Prosecutors argued that his writings and videos showed a complete absence of empathy, painting a portrait of someone who had long since disconnected from the pain of others. Warning signs had been missed. One of the most alarming was a disturbing drawing found by a teacher the very morning of the attack. The image depicted violence and chaos, a clear cry for help that went unheeded. The discovery led to a meeting with his parents where concerns were raised about his behavior and mental state. Despite the warning signs, he was allowed to return to class. The gun used in the attack was a recent gift from his parents, given just days before the tragedy. This decision raised urgent questions about adult responsibility and the role of parents in preventing such acts. The evidence presented in court left no doubt. This was a calculated act, planned over weeks, not a momentary lapse or impulsive decision. The case set a new legal precedent, as prosecutors sought to hold not just the shooter, but also his parents accountable for their actions and inactions. Criminal charges were filed against his parents, a rare move that sent shockwaves through the community and the nation. The tragedy exposed failures at multiple levels: school, family, and the broader system meant to protect children. It forced a reckoning with how warning signs are handled, and whether enough is being done to prevent such devastating acts before they occur. Sentencing a juvenile to 45 to 65 years in prison is rare, but the court found the Oxford shooter's crime reflected irreparable corruption. Legal precedents like Miller v. Alabama require consideration of a minor's potential for change, but the judge concluded this was not a case of fleeting immaturity. The prosecution's evidence of planning and lack of remorse justified a sentence prioritizing public safety. The decision signals that, in extreme cases, age may not shield young offenders from adult consequences. Critics argue such sentences close the door on redemption, but for Oxford, the priority was justice and safety. The sentence has fueled debate about juvenile justice and the possibility of rehabilitation. It stands as a stark reminder of the consequences of premeditated violence. The Oxford shooting reignited national grief and debate over gun violence in schools. Calls for stricter gun laws grew louder, especially given the shooter's easy access to a firearm purchased by his parents. Advocates pushed for universal background checks, red flag laws, and safe storage requirements. The tragedy also highlighted the urgent need for mental health support in schools, as the shooter's writings revealed missed cries for help. Lawmakers responded with proposals for enhanced school security and new policies on threat assessment and parental responsibility. Communities across the country re-examined their own safety protocols. The echoes of Oxford forced a national reckoning with the complex issues at the heart of school safety. The conversation shifted from reaction to prevention, but solutions remain elusive. Oxford is one chapter in a long, tragic history of school shootings in America. Columbine, Sandy Hook, Parkland, and too many more. Gun violence is now the leading cause of death for American children and teens. Hundreds of school shootings have left communities traumatized and schools transformed from safe havens to vulnerable targets. Responses range from calls for more security and armed staff to demands for gun reform, but consensus is elusive. The debate is deeply tied to cultural and political divisions over the Second Amendment and government's role. Each new tragedy renews the debate but rarely brings lasting change. Oxford's story is painfully familiar: a troubled teen, easy access to guns, and a community forever changed. The nation continues to grapple with how to keep its children safe. After Oxford, the focus shifted to prevention, spotting warning signs and acting before tragedy strikes. Schools are adopting threat assessment programs and encouraging see something, say something campaigns. In one Michigan case, a potential shooting was averted when a family member reported a threatening post, showing the power of community vigilance. The Oxford case also led to the unprecedented prosecution of the shooter's parents for failing to secure the gun and ignoring warning signs. This has sparked a national conversation about parental accountability and safe storage laws. Balancing security with a welcoming school environment remains a challenge. Metal detectors and surveillance can make schools feel like prisons, impacting students' well-being. The debate continues. How do we combine physical security, mental health support, and community vigilance? Oxford's lesson is clear. Prevention requires a multi-layered approach. The Oxford shooting left a deep scar on the community and the nation. The grief for the 4 students lost is ever present, and survivors face ongoing trauma. The school, once a symbol of pride, is now a reminder of tragedy. The lengthy prison sentence for the shooter and the convictions of his parents have set new legal precedents. The case has forced schools, parents, and lawmakers to re-examine their responsibilities and policies. Despite years of debate and security upgrades, the threat of school violence remains real. Oxford's story is one of pain, resilience, and a renewed call for change. The memory of Madison, Tate, Hannah, and Justin endures as a call to protect our children and prevent future tragedies.